Hi everyone! So glad you're here. I'm Lana Jones. I'm one of the educational consultants for Quality Sewing, and I am just tickled to be here doing Sew Fun for you live on Quality Sewing Facebook. So if you have been sewing during this quarantine, go ahead and hit your like or your love button so I can see how many people are out there. Awesome. Very good. A few of you have been sewing. That's great. Okay, so we are going to do a show and tell. That's going to be very, very awesome. And what I want you to do is either during this live broadcast or afterwards, you'll have until April 10th. I want you to post what you've been sewing. And we'll go through and randomly pick a couple of people to win in this session and a couple of people to win in Jenny's session. You will get a voucher that you can go on our website and you can order whatever you'd like with that. So that's going to be awesome. We get to see all your beautiful things. I am super excited about that. If you see anything in our presentations that you would like to purchase, you can go to our website and go to the sewing section and then go down to sewing accessories and then Sew Fun, and you'll be able to buy any of the products that we are going to show you today. Okay, Stitch from the Heart is by Corey Turner Goodheart, and this book is just such a good book. It has great instructions on how to do her projects. She gives you plenty of artwork in order for you to do the projects. Lots of artwork on here. And the thing for me is all of the embroidery on here is done by hand. I think handwork is absolutely stunningly beautiful, but I don't do handwork. I found over the years that I truly love to do machine work instead. So I have digitized all of the designs for my projects that she has put in her book. And don't go snarling your nose at digitizing. I know there's a lot of you out there trying to learn it. I see you on all of the groups online trying to learn it from the classes that are out there. So I know there's a bunch of you. So this was a challenge for me to do this, because when I did the pillow, here, that I'll show you in just a moment, that was multiple hoopings to get that done, okay? So the first thing we're going to show you is the pillow, and it took a hooping to do the ground, a hooping to do the leaves and the stems, to do all of the little flowers. It was about 4 hoopings to do this. And one of the things I did when I digitized this was I love to put stitches over the applique fabric. And I think that turned out very, very cool. Okay. I also adjusted the buttons a little bit. She wanted you to have them up on top of the stems. I decided that I wanted them drooping off just a little bit. The weight of the flower droops them off a little bit. But they look kind of sad that way. So I decided that I was going to put a crystal in the center of it. Well, one crystal didn't look that great, so I started clustering crystals, and I went, oh, that is just perfect. So I put a cluster of 7 crystals in each one of the buttons, okay? And that worked out great. When I did the pillow, I did use the OESD point and press, and that was used to poke out the corners. And I like this point and press because you have a small end and you have a large end. So this is great, and it's a nice gripper to poke out the corners when you do the turn them right sides out. Okay, so this was just a very, very fun pillow to do. I did get the kit from the author, and I got that at olivegracestudios.com to get all of my fabric. Okay. So I'm going to set this aside, and I'm going to take this quilt down off of my wall so that I can show you this one. Okay, and again, all of the embroidery was done with digitizing, and several of the things that I did with this was when I stitched this all together, pieced it all together, I used the Roxanne's Dip and Dab. And the reason why I like this so well, you can see I've used it so much, I've worn off some of the lettering. I love this. It is a washable glue. It washes out when you're done. What I did with this is as I went to piece each one of these, I used the dip and dab, and I glued the pieces together, and then I sewed them. Now, those of you who are quilters will go, well, that's kind of takes a lot of time. Well, yes, it does. But those of us who don't match up these intersections perfectly every time, how much time do we take ripping them apart and then resewing them to rip them apart and resew them until we get the intersections perfect? All I had to do to get this, to use this, was to take my fabric. This has a nice felt tip on the end, and I'm just going to dab glue right across the edge here. Okay, doesn't need a lot. And then I'm going to put my pieces together, and I'm just going to put that into the seam allowance, and then I'll take my iron and I'll just iron it. Once it is ironed, then once I go to my sewing machine, everything is going to match up perfectly because it is glued together. So that is a great product. I totally love it, and you can get refills for this product. Okay. So after I got this all pieced and ready to start quilting, I used ruler work to do all of the quilting on the sides here. And I did use the new fine line friction pen. This is a felt pen with a super fine line. Totally love this pen. Comes in all kinds of colors. And I think we have an 8-pack, I can't remember, but we have packs of them, so you get several colors. And I drew my line, my first line, and then I used ruler work to do the rest of the stitching, because this friction pen will get removed by heat of your iron. Okay. When I went to do my little windmill here, one of the things I notice when people do decorative stitches is they start from this end to stitch it and stitch to this end. Then they start here and stitch to here, and then they have a mess in the center of the intersection. What you want to do is you want to start in the center and stitch out, then come back to the center and stitch out, come back to the center, stitch out, and come back to the center and stitch out again. That way, all of your stitches look perfect and there's no mess in the center of your project. Okay, over here, I am going to quilt this. This is a modern quilt, so you have lots of area to play with quilting and do all your fancy work. And what we decided to bring in for this particular sew fun was the meander ruler. And the meander ruler is just a large stipple. Okay, then this is just so much fun to use. So you're going to place that on your quilt. You're going to start up in the corner. You notice it's opening up here. And for this project, you will need to have a ruler foot. Now the ruler feet, there are several sizes. The ones for the domestic machines are the high shank, the mid shank, and the low shank. Okay, so you want to make sure that you have one of those particular feet. If you have something other than a domestic machine, they have feet for those. You'll have to check on that to see what it is. But I was using a performance icon, so I used the mid shank foot for my particular project. Once that is installed on your machine, you want to make sure the needle is centered in the foot, because this is an aftermarket foot. Your needle may not be dead center. You'll have to move it over to make sure it's dead center. Then you're going to stick it in the little tunnel, and you are going to quilt around in that tunnel. Now, there is a video that I have done to show you a demo on how that is done. We will get that posted for you. And you will stitch all the way around going through the tunnels. When you get down here to the end, you will rotate the ruler and you'll do it again and do that continually all down your quilt. When you get to the end, you'll bring it back up to the top, put it where you need it to go, and do it again. And you just do row after row after row. When you are all done, it does not look like you did rows of stippling. Just a great ruler to do your ruler work with. Okay, so then I have to now bind it, right? Now I'm a 1/2-inch binder person, and I did put my some of my instructions for binding up on the we'll get that posted. And what I want to show you is that when I take my binding and I put it to the back, I always take steam-a-seam to 1/4 inch, and that is what I put all along the edge here. And that I'll show you that in the video when we get that posted onto the Facebook page. And so steam-a-seam 2 goes along the edge, and then when I press this over, I can stitch in the ditch, I can hand sew that, and I'm going to talk about doing a blind hem here in just a little bit, okay? So then I can get that all quilted. When I was finally all done, I took my micron pen and I went back over to my little bird over here, and I did my dots in the eyes, the eyebrows, and all the dots with the Micron pen. You can also sign your quilt labels with the Micron pen because this is a permanent. It's archival ink. It's not going to damage the fabric, and it's just a great pen to use to make markings on your particular project. Okay, my next project here is called Pocket for Your Thoughts. Okay, and this was a super fun project to do. Again, I did it all with embroidery versus doing it by hand. And you can see there's a little pocket here. Okay, and this is all done in the hoop. I digitized this to be done in the hoop. It is not digitized in the book. None of these are. You can do these all with your applique stitch from your sewing machine. You can do it by hand, whatever your project, whatever your favorite is. And my favorite is to digitize it. So I got these all done. And again, I used the dip and dab glue to glue everything together before I did the stitching so that all of my intersections meet perfectly. Okay. I did have to do some applique on my projects here. You notice that on the pillow I had an applique flowers and stuff. I have appliques here. The product that we brought in for that is called Hotfix Adhesive. And the Hotfix Adhesive, you can buy it by the sheet, a 12 by 12 sheet. 6 sheets in there, or you can buy it on a roll if you're going to do a lot of projects. The thing I like about this, it is super thin, so it doesn't add a lot of bulk to your applique like some of the Fusible Webs do. So this is such a great product. It is also washable and permanent bond. No stitching is required. So just a great product for your appliques. Okay. When we're doing our quilting on these projects, whether we're using the meander ruler, or we're doing our stippling ourselves, or whatever we're doing, but we're doing the free motion, there's a couple products that we're going to need to do to make it through this. We are going to want a sew steady table, or if your machine's in a cabinet, that would be great. But a sew steady table really helps to lay the quilt out so you can do a lot nice movement. We've also brought in the Grid Glider by Sew Steady. This is one of my favorite products because it sticks really well to the surface of your Sew Steady table. And let's see, this would be the right way for me. It's got a nice large hole, so if you had to do some sewing, you could easily get your feed dogs up, do a little bit of sewing, and put them back down again, and continue doing your project. So this has a nice adhesive on the back. If it quits sticking, then you just wash it off and it sticks again. So just another great product for you to do your quilting with. Okay, and again, this was another kit that I had ordered from the author at Olive Grace Studios, and just another fun project to do. One of the things I like to do as I am doing my quilting and my projects is I like to, sometimes when I'm stitching in the ditch, I like to add a color to the ditch. Instead of just a plain color, I like to add a little bit of color along the edge here. So there's many times that I will take a decorative stitch and, a colored thread and do a straight stitch or triple stitch along the edge here to add a little bit of color, to add a little bit of fun to the quilt. Okay. My next project is going to be the Simple Sacks. And that is a bag by Atkinson Designs. And the cool thing about the Simple Sacks is they are really simple. And I did a couple of them here. And they have a pocket. They go together really fast and really easy. I like a little more stable handle, so I did put a little more stabilizer in the handle, but that makes it so I can't fold it into the pocket. Okay, but they still turned out really cute. I made 3 of them. I totally enjoyed making these, so I made 3 of them for myself. And the third one I made out of smart fabric. Okay, smart fabric is a fabric that doesn't fray. It doesn't bleed. It is just a great product. You'll probably have seen a lot of bags made out of this. You can buy this stuff yourself. We'll put up a link to show you some information about smart fabric. And I just made this quick little bag. I didn't even finish the edges because it doesn't need that. Okay, and made this quick little bag out of the Simple Sack pattern. One of the things with the Smart fabric is you can press it on a very, very low heat, but it will distort it just a tiny little bit. So I chose to use the Clover roll and press. That is not going to be on the list of products, but we can get one for you. And I used that to crease the edges and do my pressing on everything that needed it. It worked probably better than trying to use an iron. So the Clover roll and press was just a great one to use for that. So these are super cute bags. You have the edges here, or the loops here, so that you can hang it on the things at the grocery store, so you can fill them up. Has another loop at the back. Just a fun little project to do. Doesn't take long to make these, and they are fun to make. So that is the Simple Sack by Atkinson Designs. My next project is going to be the Neighborhood Sweatshirt. Okay, great project for the Great Northwest. Okay, a lot of times, even on a sunny day, it can get cool in the evenings and we need to throw on a sweatshirt. Well, the sweatshirt I made is the zipper one. It comes with either zipper or a pullover, and it does have quite a few sizes. It starts at extra small and goes all the way to extra, extra large. So lots of sizes in there for you to choose from. One thing about this, if you notice on the drawing here, the back is longer. I like that. We have a little bit longer back on our sweatshirt. And I won't be able to, it's going to be hard to show you the whole sweatshirt here on this little tiny camera, but it does go together super easy. I did use a different fabric to make mine. I used the scuba fabric. And scuba fabric, this one is a reversible fabric, so it's a little bit thicker than normal scuba fabric, but it's spongy. I don't know if you can see that online. It's a little bit spongy. Okay, and I used a wobble stitch to stitch this all together, and a wobble stitch to do all the top stitching. What a wobble stitch is instead of using a stretch stitch, I used a wobble stitch, which is a zigzag that is very, very narrow and very short. So I can't even remember what I set it up for. I want to say 0.2 by 0.2 or something like that, really narrow and really small. And I was able to stitch all of these. I have lots of stretch in all of my seams because of the wobble stitch. Just a great stitch to put on these things. Now the one thing about this fabric is it doesn't breathe. So it's very warm. So those of you guys who are cold all the time, you can certainly get a lot warmer with this fabric. And this one is the double-sided reverse one, so it tends to be a little bit warmer. You can use either a stretch or a ballpoint needle with this. And one of the things I was having trouble with is it slips a lot because it is a slippery fabric, and I had trouble when I was doing any of the top stitching trying to move it along because my hands were slipping on it. So when I was doing the quilting, one of the products that we brought in for quilting are the Marcia, I'm going to mess up her name here, Berlardi Quilters gloves. This is great for quilting. It's great for slippery fabrics. And all you're going to do is adjust this so it fits on your hands. Okay, so now my fingers are free for my quilting, so when I'm using my quilting, my hands are free for that. But when I'm using slippery fabrics as well, this is going to help me grip onto the fabric so I can do my top stitching and my hands won't slip on it. So I found several reasons to use the gloves besides just quilting. It's got this nice rubber on the inside here. Makes it great for quilting when I'm quilting my projects. Makes it great for the slippery fabric so it doesn't slip all over the place. Stretcher ballpoint needle. And I did have to adjust the stitch length and the tension just a little bit to make sure that everything turned out great. Don't have to worry about any fraying because this fabric does not fray at all. So just another great pattern for you to do with your with these days that we have lots of time to do stuff with. So that is the Neighborhood Sweatshirt and Hoodie. So great little pattern. Okay, are you guys all still with me? Give me a heart to make sure I know you're still all with me. I'm not seeing any hearts or likes. There we go. Yay, thank you. Glad you're still here. Okay, so our next project and that I'm going to go over is Boho Soul. This is by Scissor Tail Stitches. Okay, these fit in hoops of 5x7 or larger. Scissor Tail is an OESD design pack, and these have just absolutely stunningly beautiful designs on here. Okay, there's a dragonfly, there's flowers, there's a little bug, a butterfly, a ladybug, just fun designs. Well, I picked out several of the designs on here, the flower ones, and I decided to make a little wall hanging with that. I used a vintage linen, okay, that I purchased online, and I got that, I think we'll post the website, fabric-store.com is where I got that from. I really like the look of that linen. So I stitched out all 4 designs onto my projects, and I decided that I wanted to take the border and use that in my border. So I did have to increase the size of that so it would fit the right size for the blocks that I made. Okay. My whole idea on this quilt was I was going to use black cornerstones, black binding, and black stripping in the middle. That didn't work out how my mind's eye was, because I would have to readjust the borders again to get the stripping in there, and so I decided not to do that. When I went to put the black cornerstones in, I thought, oh, that's really detracting. And when I went to put the black binding on, I thought, oh, that just took all the look away that I was trying to achieve. So I decided to do the borders, and I left enough on the edge here, so I decided to do a self-binding on here. Okay, so that means a self-binding, which means I'm going to take the front fabric, I'm going to fold it to the back and tack it down. Now, y'all know I don't do handwork. Okay, and I don't know if you can see this, but all of these beads on here, there's 1,800 beads that I decided to put in the ditches of the quilt. I don't do handwork on beading either. Okay, so all the beads were put on by machine, all the tacking down of the back was put on by machine, everything on this quilt was done by machine. Now the little beads on here are Miyuki Delica. They're very, very, very tiny. That's why it took 1,800 beads. Okay, so I got all the beads on, and then I decided, well, I think I put the beads on last. I think to bind it to the back, I had this linen that's going to ravel easily, correct? So I did have to bind the edge with some bias binding, and there is no ditch to stitch in. Okay, no ditch to stitch in, so I can't stitch in the ditch. I am not going to hand stitch this binding down, because I don't do that. But what I do is a blind hem. And there will be a video posted on how I do the blind hem on my quilt. This was the project that I did. Whenever I am tacking my binding to the back, the first thing I do is I take Steam Seam 2 1/4 inch, and I put that along the edge here in the seam allowance, and then I'm going to fold that over and press that down. Okay, so now, because this is folded past that stitching line, if I stitch in the ditch, I will make it. If I hand sew it, it's great. And if I do a blind hem, I'm going to take my blind hem and I'm going to fold that back, set my machine up for a very short, very narrow blind hem, and I'm going to blind hem that down, because that is not going to show on the front side. And there is a video on that so that you can see exactly how I did that, and give that a try for yourself. So what works with that is the Steam Seam 2 1/4 inch and your blind hem foot on your machine, and that gives a beautiful, beautiful tack down. Nothing shows on the front, because the stitches go into the batting. They're not going to come to the front and show. So that was a super fun project to do. Really like how this turned out. That is Boho Soul by Scissor Tail Stitches. Another project I did with the Boho Soul was this wood project. And the one thing about the wood project is this is 16th inch balsa wood. Okay, it is not going to hurt your machine. It won't damage anything. It is a perfect material to embroider in. So I took one of the designs and embroidered into the 16th inch balsa wood. Now you can get what you get in the stores for balsa wood is usually going to be 6 inches wide. Okay, you can piece it to make it big enough, or you can go to nationalbalsa.com and you can buy 8 inches, 10 inches, 8, 10, and 12 inches wide. So that's a great place. I buy all my balsa wood from nationalbalsa.com. I got this frame at Michael's and it already had the bird in there. Okay, so I didn't have to come up with a bird. It was already in the frame. And what I did then was to do the embroidery. And when you embroider on wood, okay, you can use tearaway. I prefer no-show mesh as my stabilizer. I think it works better and I like it much better as far as the stability to do the stitches. So you will tape your balsa wood to the no-show mesh. I like to use the Perfection tape by Floriani because it sticks well, but not too well that it will damage the wood. Okay. I also want to put a heat away over the top. Some of these stitches go in the exact same direction as the wood grain, and they will just sink in and disappear. So I like to put a heat away over the top. Then I do all of my embroidery, and then I'm going to take my iron and I'm going to iron the heat away. You have to be careful when you do that. When you start heating this away, the heat away rolls up into little balls. When they cool, they become hard. And if you keep ironing and keep ironing, you're just going to push those things into the wood and damage it. So you want to iron a little bit, brush the heat away, iron a little bit more, brush the heat away, until you get it all removed. Okay? Once you get it removed, you're going to cut it down to the size that you need it. Okay? And I also went and I drew from the back side, I drew the little bird onto the back side of my balsa wood, and I used an X-Acto knife and some sandpaper. There we go. Some X-Acto knife to cut it out and some sandpaper to sand it nice and smooth. And then I take your wood glue, just your Elmer's wood glue is all that's needed, and cover the entire back of the frame. And you don't want a lot of glue. That needs to be thin. If you put too much glue, it'll be squirting out all over, up around, out here. Just put a nice thin layer and put this in here. Now you want to weight it down. Because of the sides, this was hard to weight down. So what I did was I took my 8x8 ruler, put that in here, and put a big jug of water on top of it to weight it down. It only takes about a half an hour to an hour to set. Okay. Once that's removed, I finish all the sanding, I glued on my words, and I have my wood project done. So that was like super fun to do. Really, really, totally loved how this turned out. Okay, our next book is by Marcia Baraldi, and she is the one that has the gloves and the meander ruler that I showed you earlier. These are such great products, so please take a look at them because I'm sure you will absolutely love them like I do. And in this book, I found this. She does have several patterns in here, some little birds and some flowers and stuff, so cute little patterns. But the main thing that I took away from the book was that be creative. Use your ideas, use your imagination, and come up with some cool stuff. Well, as I was perusing this book a lot, I came across this page, obviously, and it says, use your go cutter. And I'm going, oh, I have lots of go dies. Oh my gosh, I'm going to use my go cutter. That is amazing. And so I kept going through her book, getting all kinds of ideas. I went through her book a gazillion times. And I decided that, I've decided what I was going to do first. My first project from the ideas in this book, I decided to use the couple of dies that I've purchased. And one is the elephant die, and we'll post the number of that as well, and the star die. Okay. Now notice on my dies, I have marked off where I'm going to lay my piece of fabric. Okay, so I know not to go too high or too low. Don't be afraid to mark on your dies. There is nothing wrong with taking a chalk marker and marking where you want to lay your fabric. It is your die. Mark it up and have a good time doing that so you know exactly where to place your fabric. So I cut out, in this case, I didn't have, at that time, I didn't have any white batting when I was doing this, so I just used felt on here, okay? And felt worked fine. And I used felt for my star. And one of the things she says in the book is to not only use your batting, which is really what she's using in all of these is batting, she says to also cut out some colored fabric to use on top of your projects to color them, okay? And there's a few samples of that in here. I should have marked them, and I did not, but you get the idea. You can use some fabric to color your particular projects. Okay, well, I decided to cut out a sheer and put a gold sheer over the top of that. Okay, so here's what you do. You cut out batting. In this case, I use felt. You cut out batting with your die. Okay, and then what you want to do before you cut that out is put some Fusible Web on the back, and we are using the Hotfix Adhesive today because we have to fuse these down so they don't move as we're doing our work. So make sure you put the Fusible Web on first and then cut out your project. Okay, and now I decided to step out of the sewing box. And most of you know that I love to step out of my sewing box. I grew up with an artist's mom, and I don't think I knew what a box was because she was always creative. And so I learned to just give it a try. There are things you can do that are safe, things that are okay, but then there's things that, oh my gosh, that's scary. Let's go to the scary side, okay? So what I did was I needed some grass for my elephants to be in. And so I took this stuff called, it's from Joann's, it's called Sparkle Mesh. And you can see it's very, very sheer. And I used 2 layers of that, and I laid that over my project for my grass. And then I put my elephants down. Then I put my star on. All this is fused down. I did have to do a little spray adhesive to keep that sheer on top of the star. Then you're going to take another sheer, and you want to audition your shears to see which one you're going to like. That's going to give you the effect you want. And you're going to lay that over your entire project. Cover the entire thing with another sheer. Okay? And now you'll stitch around your cutouts, give them the dimension, and then you'll do your stippling. My idea on here was to have elephants all the way around. Okay? When I tried to do that, it didn't look very good. So I decided that I would put binding. I took the same fabric I used for my stars, and I used that for my binding. And then I cut out elephants to go across the top only, and I backed them with craft text so they would stay up and stand up. And I totally think this was like really fun. I love how it turned out. I love the sheer that I use. I love the sheer that I used for the grass. The elephants turned out adorably cute. And I know a lot of you have Go dies and Go cutters, and you can come up with some amazing stuff with your Go cutters. My next project, I decided, this one was so much fun. I decided that, oh, before I move on with the shears, let me tell you one other thing here. Shears like this one right here, they love to fray. You can see all that fraying on there? That's annoying. When you're sewing with it, when you're doing this with it, that is annoying. If you take the fabric stabilizer, okay, this is by Sullivan's, and you spray the edge of this and then cut it, it's not going to fray. The stabilizer holds all these, this fabric edges together, or fabric fraying, stops all the fabric fraying, so that you get a nice clean edge when you're cutting. So this is a great product to spray on your shears before you cut them and use them. Whether you're sewing them into a garment or putting them on a project like this, spray it first with this. One other thing I discovered with this as I was playing around with it was I wondered how it would do. Everybody always asks, how do you cut fabric without Fusible Web on the back? Because you're going to quilt it or you're going to do something with your project and you don't want to put Fusible Web on the back. You can't really quilt a block or a piece of block if you have Fusible Web on the back, okay? So I thought, I wonder if I can cut fabric out with the fabric stabilizer and make it stable enough to use my scan and cut, okay? So what I did first was I took my fabric and I sprayed it with the fabric stabilizer. Okay, you can let it air dry. You can use a hair dryer to dry it, or you can lay a piece of press cloth over the top and iron it dry with your iron. I did let it dry for a little bit, and then I finished finished drying it with a my iron. Okay, so this has some nice weight to it now that it's got some stabilizer on it. And then I proceeded to cut out my projects. I put these on my high-tack support sheet that is on my Scan and Cut mat, and I cut out these designs with that. Okay, and you can see they cut out perfectly with just a little bit of spray from the fabric stabilizer. So that worked out really well to cut out fabric with no fusible web on the back. So that is the Fabric Stabilizer by Sullivan. It's just a great, great product. All right, so as I, again, was perusing through her book, coming up with ideas, when she said that you could put fabric over the top of your applique to give it color, my little brain went to, I wonder if you can dye cotton batting and get good results. Oh, I couldn't wait to get to my computer to start researching to see if people had dyed batting. Okay, so I researched it a little bit. I found a few of them which were using RIT dye, which worked. The color wasn't really strong. It worked, but it was messy. Okay, and I didn't really like that. My studio right now is very, very small. I don't have a lot of room, so I don't want really, really messy stuff. So I kept searching and searching. I finally stumbled upon a website, or excuse me, I think it was a blog or something like that. I can't remember. And we'll post the actual thing. It's by Patty Wack, Pattie Wack, W-A-C-K. And she had the absolute best idea. I loved it. Okay, so I'll tell you really quickly. We'll give you her website, so you, or her blog or whatever it is, so that you can go see how she did it. But I'm going to do it here really quickly for you, so that you can see. First of all, I digitized my designs. So these were done in the hoop, and I digitized my designs. These designs are available at bluebunnyhollow.com, and I use them as my designs. It's all cut out with fusible web on the back. But what you're going to do is you're going to get a vessel of some kind. Okay, in Patty Wack's examples, she uses wine glasses, but she was really making it pretty and everything. You just need something glass, okay? And I use these glass cylinders that I had left over from Christmas last year. I had a half dozen or so left over from projects, and I decided to use that. So I got out 4 of them because I wanted to do 4 different colors. And then you're going to get cotton batting. Okay, now from a little bit of experimenting that I did, the different battings are going to wind up differently. So I use the warm and white. This has scrim in it, okay, and I'll show you what that will do to your dyeing. I just found my potato bag batting, and I'm going to give that a try because this does not have scrim in it. So this should turn out totally different, and I'm sure if there's a different manufacturer, it will turn out different. So try some different cotton battings and see what happens. So with the scrim in it, it'll take the dye a little bit differently. Okay, so we'll get to that in just a moment. So what you're going to do is you're going to cut your batting into a strip, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I think I cut this one at 6 inches. And this is just like 20 inches by 6 inches. And you're going to roll it up into a roll and go to your sink and put this under the sink and get it good and wet. You want it soaking wet, and then don't twist it, don't wring it, just squeeze out all the water. You want this totally soaked with water so it will accept the dye. And then shake it out to make sure that all the layers are opened up, and put that in your container. Okay. Then you want to buy, well, you should buy this first before you get to this point, but you get the idea. You want to get Tulips One-Step Dye Kit. Okay, this one-step dye kit is just like the best. This one has 18 colors in it. You can get them with 2 and 3 colors, whatever your budget or your creativeness wants to do. This is just such a great thing. Everything is in here that you need. Okay, so you're going to grab the color that you want. Okay, and the dye and everything you need is already in here. It's a powder. You'll fill it up to with water up to this line. Recap it, make sure the cap is on, and then you'll shake it for 2 minutes. Make sure it is good and mixed, okay? Once that is mixed and ready to do, you're going to take the cap off, and you are going to squirt that entire bottle onto your batting, okay? Make sure you get all the way down in there and squirt it all on there, Okay, and then what I like to do is I like to take my tongs and make sure that it is nice and evenly distributed, push it down, do whatever I have to. There is protective sheets in there to cover your work surface. I will take the protective sheet, lay it over the top of my container, and leave it overnight. And the reason why I want to cover it is I don't want this to dry out overnight. I want it to stay moist. So I'm going to cover it with the protective sheet to make sure it stays moist. Partway through the evening, I did go and grab this and turn it upside down so that I made sure that it was even coating. So I turned it upside down. The next day, when you take the batting out, take it out at your sink, and you'll rinse this until the water runs clear. In the kit, you will get plastic gloves so that you won't get anything on your hands. And please use them. That dye will get on your hands and dye your hands. And then I'm just going to rinse this under my sink until it is water runs clear. Once the water runs clear, then I can either hang it to dry or I can throw it in the dryer and let it dry. I threw mine in the dryer and let it dry. And when it came out, I did 3 different colors. I did a red, a light green, a medium green, and an orange. And you can see the difference here between the front and the back. This side has scrim. Excuse me, this is the regular side. And you can see that the scrim side just took the dye a little bit differently. Not wrong, because that could be a very cool effect in some projects if you want to use both sides. Same thing with the green, is that it took the dye differently on both sides, and as well did the red. Didn't notice it too much on here because it's a lighter color. Okay, so now I'm doing an in the hoop project. So I pull my design into my embroidery machine. It stitches out where I want to stitch my design, and then I lay my cutout. When you cut this out with your Hotfix adhesive on the back, make sure that the paper is towards the mat. What I like to do is, some people like to leave the paper on. That's great. If that's what you want to do, go for it. I personally like to remove the paper and put sticky to sticky so that it really adheres well and cuts well. So your choice either way. But don't put the fabric side down, because this is a little bit thick. It will tend to move as it's cutting and you won't get a clean cut. You want to make sure the back side or the paper side is down. Cut out your design. It will do all of the stitching. It will do all of the quilting, and then you make your blocks and you have a nice little project. And then I put 2 pieces of thread around here and tack them down to add a little more color. My last project I have for you today is this one. Oh my gosh, this one was way fun. What I did was I was perusing for ideas, and I got to the AccuQuilt blog. And on the AccuQuilt blog, they had taken Sarah Vedler's Heather Feather Border die, and they had cut these out, and theirs was not done with batting. Theirs was done with regular fabric. They cut these out and then randomly placed them so that they made a Christmas tree. I went, oh my God, I love this idea. It was so cool. So I cut these out. Make sure as you're cutting these out that you reverse some of them, because this is not going to fit together. If you only do it one way, you're going to not be able to use them to their best advantage. So make sure you flip some of them over so you have multiple images. So after I got my batting, I dyed batting, and this was the red that I dyed, cut out with the Sarah Vedler dye. Then I had Fusible Web on the back. Then I arranged them on my backing fabric and fused them down. Now, if I had, I did audition different shears. When I put the red one on it, or excuse me, the white one on it, it looked nice and cool, like an ice cold winter. It was very pretty. And when I put on a blue, which I forgot to grab, when I put on a blue, it looked like an evening, a Christmas tree in the evening. But then, as I was playing, I just grabbed every single shear and laid them on there. I even grabbed pink just to see what that would look like. And I grabbed a blue that was this type of fabric. When I laid this green one on here, I went, oh my gosh, that is so pretty. I just totally loved that. And I thought, no, the white is safe and the white would look good. And I'm going, Lana, that's boring. And then the blue was not as boring, but it's like, that's still safe. when I put this one out there and I thought, oh my gosh, this is the one I'm going to use. So I put that sparkle mesh over the top. I stitched around, free motion stitched around each piece. And don't worry if it's not perfect, no one's going to see that. And then I stippled around the outside. Now the biggest problem I had stitching around on the outside was that I couldn't see where I went and where I hadn't gone. And after I turned it over to the back, I went, oh, I didn't do so bad for not being able to see where I was. So I did actually pretty good. And honestly, no one's going to see if I made it or not. I don't like a white binding. I prefer not to have a white binding, but I didn't have a red that was this color. And because we're all under quarantine, I'm not going to run to the store to try to find it. I just used white. But it still needed a color out here to open that up a little bit. So I took a red thread and I did a 7-bean stitch with the performance icon along the edge here. And what 7-bean means, it's going to go back and forth 7 times before it moves on to the next stitch. So I got a nice heavy stitch along here. I could have also put red cording if I had red to match here, but the red thread that I had matched it perfectly, so that is what I did. And then again on the back, I used the Steam-A-Seam 2/4 inch to press that down, and then did all my stitching around the edge. So that turned out very, very cool. I was super happy with this one. This one's probably my favorite project of the entire projects that I did. So this was really fun. Go to the blog at AccuQuilt and you can see the original one, which is just as beautiful as this one. Okay, so let me loosen my little camera here. I'm going to turn this up so you can see my face. And I don't know why that is doing that. There we go. Oops, not high enough. Oop. Oh. Okay, so I think we're here. So, okay, so now, thank you for joining us. I don't know why this is, I don't know if you can see this, but I'm getting all types of stuff on my face here. I don't know where that's coming from. I don't know if you can see that. But anyway, I'm so glad that you were here. Thank you for joining us. We're going to take a little break, and then Jenny's going to do her presentation. So thank you so much for being here for So Fun. Have a fabulous day. I miss you all. I can't wait that we can actually get together and do this. So have a good day, and bye. Have a good time. See you later.
Okay, my name is Jenny Swenson. I am a So Fun consultant for the south end of Quality Sewing and Vacuum, and I normally do this the end of the month and into the beginning of the next month. What makes this nice is that you're seeing both the north end and the south end presentations on the same day, which is unusual. And if you've ever been to any of our So Fun presentations, you know that when you are at a presentation, there are items that we get low on, or that we say you have to order, or there's only a certain amount. Today, you all have that same opportunity to get every single item is in stock right now. You can make up your order. They will ship it to you. Go to qualitysewing.com, and we never have that happen, all right? Before we get started, I want to remind you that there will be 4 drawings for vouchers at qualitysewing.com. All you have to do to get your name in the drawing is to go to the comments section of these videos and post a photo, because normally we have So Fun and we have show and tell, and we get to see all those wonderful projects that you're making, and we want to see those as everyone else does. So you have until April 10th to do that, and on April 10th they will draw 4 names, and you will get vouchers for qualitysewing.com, which is a wonderful gift, all right? So I'm going to start off by telling you about a few of the products that we have that Lana didn't talk about. She did a wonderful presentation. It's hard to follow her, is all I can say. I'm going to talk to you about the Kai nail clippers. We brought these in. I'm going to hold them up here so that you can see them. Okay, the blue one is a larger cutting surface, and the pink one is a smaller. Okay, these are made in Japan out of stainless steel. I gave one to every single one of my children and their significant others at Christmas, and they all say that they work so much better than the ones that they bought at the drugstore. They have a sheath that goes on and off, and it will hold some of your nails if you clip the correct way. It has a file here that you can use that way. And then the small one, the pink one, has a much smaller cutting surface. And it comes with this nice case that has a zipper closure on the top, and you can take it with you. Okay. The other Kai item we brought in is the 7170 scissors. These are the professional quality scissors for Kai, and they have a nice little resting place for your index finger here. It's ambidextrous, it can go on either hand. These have one blade that is serrated, and what that does for you is it allows you to be able to cut curves really nicely on anything that doesn't want to stay against that blade, because the serrated blade holds the fabric against the other blade and it will cut really nicely. The professional series of Kai scissors are different than their regular scissors, in that they are made with a high carbon steel. And high carbon steel means that that edge can be made finer, sharper, and stronger than the other scissors made by Kai. And when you're using these, you can feel that little bit of serration. So it works well for knits, it works well for slinkies. I used it when I was cutting out the batting from our one book, and it grips the edge as you're cutting. So when I'm cutting this batting, it wants to move away from the fabric, away from the blade, and I can do really nice curves with these scissors. All right, I have an S on these because I have two pair. One is the regular 7170, and these are the serrated, so they have an S on here. Okay. The other item that I'm going to talk about is the Iron Easy, and this has three parts to it. There is a bottle here. There are the two parts that go on your ironing board. So this is a clamp that goes onto your ironing board. If you push in that button, it will move. It will move the clamp. Once it's on there and in there good and tight, it will not move. And then this slides right onto that. Okay. And then if you put your ironing board away and put it up, this will move and slide so that it still holds the bottle. The nice thing about this bottle, it has a really adjustable edge here for the spray. Most spray bottles have either an on or an off. This one is adjustable, so you get the right amount of spray that you want. Okay. Many of us are making masks right now for health professionals or loved ones, and this is a mask pattern that I have from craftpassion.com, and I like the curve of it. So when I was cutting this out and ironing it and sewing it together, I started using this point and press tool from OESD. It has a small end and a large end, and when you sew that seam, before you iron it, after you've turned it right side out, you run this along that whole edge, and then it will hold that edge out for you, and you can iron it really nice and it's a nice sharp crisp edge. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you first about the Neighborhood Sweatshirt and Hoodie from Liesl and Company. This sweatshirt comes in multiple sizes from extra small all the way up to extra, extra large. And it means that it fits chest sizes from size 38 up to 52.5 inches. Okay? The pattern is really well written and thought out, so if you're not an accomplished sewer, it will still fit you well, and I'm actually wearing mine. I have my computer hooked up here, but it looks like my internet is not cooperating. Okay. So I'm not sure if you can see this, but this is one of my sweatshirts. Oh, now I can see myself, okay. And when you're wearing it, it goes lower on the side here, and then up in the front. When I made my first one, I made it out of sportswear fabric from Billy's in Chehalis. And this is the first one. So when it's summertime and I want to wear something that's a little lightweight, this will be what I reach for. So it is a lightweight polyester. It's finished off on the inside. They do a really good job showing you to finish this off. Okay. And I did the zipper on this one the way that the pattern recommended, which is the way when we were first taught to sew. You baste that center seam open and then closed, and then you lay your zipper down and you top stitch it down. Okay, so that's the way I did this one. On my second one, I had a decorative zipper, and I didn't want that to be hidden. So the way that I did that is the first thing you're going to do is lay your zipper teeth right sides down against the zipper, and you're going to stitch close to the edge, about 1/8 of an inch away. You're going to turn that back and you top stitch down so that the zipper teeth show. Okay, when you're doing that, you do have to mark on the zipper tape where your seams are going to intersect. So for example, right here where this pocket comes into play, I want those seams to be exactly opposite each other on that zipper. Same with the bottom here with the edging. Okay, so that's how I do that, and it's not hard. You just lay it right sides down, stitch it, turn it right side out, and top stitch it. Okay, but it's a wonderful, comfortable pattern. It does have the hood. I put the hood on both. Normally I don't make two of the same pattern because I get bored easily. This one is something I think I'll make quite often. There's also a second option that has with no hood. Okay. All right. When you're doing this, I would recommend that you interface your pocket a little bit more. She has you interface the seam for the edge here and the seam edge for your zipper. But I think I would interface a little bit more so that this pocket stood a little bit better. Okay. The first book I'm going to talk about is Stitched from the Heart, and the quilt behind me is the first project that I'm going to talk about, and it is called Good Heart Love Quilt. Okay, so when I was making this, the book has it all done in taupes, and I have a lot of grays in my stash, okay? So I went through and pulled them. The first thing that I did is I copied that page of the quilt and wrote down which fabrics I wanted to use in which area of the quilt, okay? So this center black area here, I wanted that kind of prominent, and I placed that one in the middle, and then I decided where everything else was going to be, okay? On this book, you have several options to create the designs. You can hand stitch them. Now I have a friend, a very dear friend, who says that hand stitching is a 4-letter word, hand. I enjoy hand stitching at times, so I did one project hand stitched. A second project, I used my triple straight stitch on my sewing machine, which goes 2 forward, 1 back, 2 forward, 1 back. And you can follow a line with that and create a stitch that looks like you've done it by hand. So my second project was done with that. This project had a lot of embroidery in addition to applique hearts. So when you look at this picture here, you have stitching done. She's telling you to do it by hand. I did it with machine embroidery, okay? Each of those squares I took into a software, and I minimized the design so that it would fit in a 5.5-inch block. That means that my embroidery was about 4.5 inches. This one is one that I didn't use because I cut incorrectly, and I have too much up here and not enough down there, so I can use it to show you. One thing that I found I used a lot are these Clover Tweezers, and they are, if you look at this, they have a very nice sharp edge there and a point. And on the back of this, I used tearaway stabilizer. And you rip it away, but in these small areas, this little point here will get in there and pull the little tiny pieces so that you don't have any stabilizer left in your embroidery. You also, these are wonderful for if you, say I made a mistake and I started an embroidery and I didn't want to use that one. I could rip from the back, cut the backing stitches from the bobbin area, and then I can take this from the front, and because it's flat, it will grab the rayon thread and pull it out, okay? So when I was quilting this, I used a embroidery design set. You have very large areas here to quilt, and I wanted to use my embroidery machine to quilt those because I know that it will do a better job than I will machine quilting, and it's easy to do. Okay, so when you're doing this, you hoop your completed quilt. So before I start machine embroidering, I will stitch around each of the large areas, and I will hold everything together, and then I can hoop my backing, my batting, and my top. They're all together just like I basted the quilt, and I hoop them all together, and then I machine embroider. I do adjust the top tension so that when I'm quilting, the embroidery will look good on, this is the front, a sample of the front, and then it's also on the back. I don't want that backing thread to be, the top thread to be pulled to the back, because it won't be as pretty. So these are some of the designs. I'm going to actually remove my phone here and show you up close on the quilt what it looks like done. Okay. So this one is one of the bubbles. Okay. And this is another area. Okay. This is a really fun one. It's got the stars and that. So these are the embroideries, and they are made smaller. If you do them in the software, they actually stitch out the same density if you select that, and they look very well. On the hearts, I used my scan and cut and actually adjusted the heart that's built into the scan and cut so that it looked long and skinny like the design that I wanted. And then I was able to use the Hotfix adhesive. This is really wonderful, and when you use it, it will come like this. And this is the you have two choices. You have the 12 by 12s, which is what this is, and you have the roll, and it will come with the paper side saying this side down, which is very helpful. So when you're doing this, you lay it down on your ironing board, and then you lay your fabric on top of it. Okay, I tried it the other way and it tends to curl, so it's up to you which way you want to do that. But it, like Lana said, it is very lightweight, and it has a shiny side to show you which side is the fusible side. Okay. So when I'm doing the binding, I do the same thing that Lana does. We both love Steam-A-Seam 2. Okay. Let's see if I can do this. So I have sewn my binding on, right sides together. I have ironed it open. This is my right side. This is my binding. And then what I do is I just place that Steam-A-Seam 2 on this side. I will hit it with a light iron. I didn't do that with this one. But once you take that paper off, it will hold over there, and then you can iron that down and the binding will stay. Okay, so you just do it like this. So you would iron it. And then when you sew from the right side, it's going to hold. You can machine stitch it or you can hand stitch it. I've done both. Okay? So that is going to hold and be nice. All right? Once you iron it. Okay. So the geometric quilting that I did with the quilt is this design set. It comes with 86 designs. Now these 86 designs, you have options. You have triple stitch if you want, or you can do single stitch. Okay? So I did single stitch on this quilt because I wanted to do it rather quickly, and it takes about 4 minutes per design. I actually combined 2 of them and then stitched them. Okay, so when we look at these designs, this is actually 2 of them together. So you decide where you're placing them. I combined two of them together in the software, and then it was easy to stitch. Okay, it covers a lot of area. Okay, the second project that I did, Lana and I both made the Brave Little Love quilt. Okay. I used a panel and I cut out these cute little baby animals from the panel and replaced some of the squares with those. And this one I did hand embroider the "You Are Brave," and I stitched around the outside with my FOF icon, just a decorative stitch that I liked. And then the little bird here, I hand stitched. All right. And like Lana said, you can use the Micron pen if you want. I have seen people not do any stitching and just draw with the Micron pen. So this one does have the hand stitching. Okay, so here's some more of those little animals you can see. Okay, I'm going to turn it so that you can see me and hold the whole thing up. Okay. So on this one, when I stitched I quilted, I used the triple straight stitch on the triple choice. Okay. So I see that we're getting some sparkles and some fun faces here. That has to be coming from quality because I'm not that tech savvy, and it keeps blacking out. I apologize. But this fabric is from Maywood Studios, and it is called, let me double check here. It is called Love Is by Hannah Dale, and it's from Maywood Studios. Okay? The last project I did is the Beloved Bed Runner. Okay, and I'm going to put this underneath here. This is the one that I actually did the triple straight stitch on. So when you look at this, all of this stitching for the stem here is with that triple straight stitch. It goes 2 forward, 1 back, 2 forward, 1 back. So I could do it as tiny as this little snail. When I'm doing something that small, though, I do decrease the stitch length to about 2.5. Everything else was done at 3.0. Okay. The applique was done with the Hotfix adhesive, and I just did a blanket stitch around it. The squares along the outside are all done with some of the same exact prints from the gray quilt. So the birds are large and fun. Okay. So I used variegated thread and decorative stitches to create those. Okay. And again, on the binding, I did a blanket stitch. I do a blanket stitch because I know that I'm hitting everything, and on the back it just is close to the edge there. Okay. So that is it for the Stitched from the Heart book. It has 9 projects in there. It's a beautiful book, and the design, they go together very quickly because you've got a lot of large areas, so they don't take a lot of time. Okay. When I was embroidering the designs for that large quilt, I used the Boho Soul design set that Lana talked about. And if you look at this, it shows you all of the designs. There are insects, there are beautiful floral designs, and there are also the look. Okay, I'm getting a glare off of that, so I'm going to show it to you here. So there are some. Here's some insects, some florals, they end up being about 5 inches square. Some are larger, and I did make a couple of garments with it also. So on the denim jacket, I decided to use gold thread for the beading area. And when I looked at the design, the rose design in the software, you can do a preview and see how it's going to stitch out. And I knew that the reds were going to stitch out to a certain area, and then I could decide which color I wanted to use. Don't do that. Don't do it. So it's black in the rose there, and then it's yellow, gold through down here. And I did that because I didn't want the gold in the rose area. All right? On the blouse, this is another one of the designs. They end up being a very nice size, and they are very dense through the rose area. So you need to use quite a bit of cutaway stabilizer, or a heavy duty cutaway stabilizer, because if you don't, it's going to pucker a lot. Okay. So the next item we're going to talk about is the Marcia Baraldi Reverse Trapunto. Now, I love trapunto, but I have never done it because it seemed too overwhelming to me, because you have to cut into the back of it, and then you have to stuff the batting in there, and then you have to close it again, and then there's just too many steps. This makes it very, very simple. And Lana showed you some wonderful ways. This is an idea book. It shows you a lot of different things to ways of doing this. When I was using the batting, this shows you what the Hotfix Adhesive looks like. It is actually shiny, and it's very light, but it worked very well on the batting. When you have I used Warm and White. When you have that, Lana was talking about scrim, and I found that I have a very hot iron, and if I tried to fuse this down with this side being where the scrim was, it actually disintegrated some. So be aware of that if you have a high temperature iron. I made actually a sample for myself to test out some of the stitching that she recommends. She has wonderful ideas for fill stitching in the book, and so I made a small sample like this so that I could see how it was going to work. So I took some of my scraps and I made a quilt sandwich, laid the batting on top of it, fused it down, and then put netting over the top. So there you can see some of the stitching. Okay? So the first project that I did was fairly simple, and it is a Batik Background. I took some of the pictures that she has in the book for ideas for the trapunto, and I enlarged them 200%, and I laid them on here in a way that I thought was pretty, and then I stitched them down with monofilament thread through here. Okay, and then I started doing the quilting. Okay, so you have a placemat or a tabletop or something that you can use, and it's just fun to make. Okay, so when you stitch closely like that, it makes the trapunto puff up a bit. Okay, the second project I did was with the I actually fused fabric on top of the batting so that I had color. All right, and these are some of the designs from her book, again enlarged 200%. And if you're like me, there are times where I run out of ideas for free motion quilting, and I decided to mark off some areas, and I used the Friction pen and marked off curved areas like here, so that I could fill that in by going back and forth and back and forth. Okay, and then on the top I did some of the designs that she recommended. For the detail, I used metallic thread, and for example on this gold area here in the center, I put 2 threads of gold through that eye of the needle, and I used a top stitch needle, and that protects that thread as it goes through the fabric. And I just went around and around and around until it was something that I thought I liked. All right, and you can do the accent after you've done everything else, and it turns out very nicely. Okay, the last project I did was finishing a project that I had started several years ago when I was teaching So Fun, and we hand dyed fabrics. So I had these hand dyed fabrics, and I created quarter square triangles, and I started with the darker colors on the outside and moved to lighter on the inside. And I used designs from Hari Wallner's Machine Trapunto book, along with some of the designs from Marcia's book. Okay, so I combined them. All right, and when I stitched this, I used the monopoly clear thread and quilted in a crosshatch all over the back because I did not want the thread to detract from my hand-dyed fabrics. They take a lot of time to do. And so I ended up with a completed project, and it gets light in the middle and it gets darker towards the outside, which is exactly what I wanted. All right, so this will be a table topper because it is symmetrical. All right. The last project I did was the Simple Sack by Atkinson Designs, and I only made one, but I'm sure I'm going to make more. Okay. You have several loops here that are to hold it onto the holders at the grocery store that they have, all right? And then you've got a pocket in the front. This fabric is from Pacific Fabrics, and it's Pacific Northwest, which I really like. There is a video online from Atkinson Designs that shows you how to fold this up, but I'm going to show you here because what's really nice is that they will go into that little pocket in the front. So you lay it down with the pocket side down. You fold the bottom up. You fold the sides in. You turn these handles into there too. You fold it this way, and then you use the pocket and turn everything into the pocket. Okay. Okay. So that is how you put that into there, and then it's ready to go, and you know it's neat and tidy and ready to go. It's really nice to be able to wash these bags. I have some that are plastic lined and I'm always wiping them out, but these will be washable, so they work really nicely. The one thing I didn't mention, and Lana did, but I want to tell you again about this. These are the wonderful gloves by Marsha Beraldi. And I have arthritis in my thumbs, and I cannot grip things really well anymore, especially for machine quilting. So if you put these on, this part is grippy. You do have your fingers free to use them to change bobbins, to change anything on your sewing machine, and your hand is ready to go, all right? And you can lay your hand flat, which is the way that she recommends doing that, because if you're like me and I've been gripping my fabric all these years, that's hard on your hand. So use it like this and it will hold that fabric and move it easily. The grid glider that Lana mentioned, this was wonderful to use with those gloves. And I have a koala table here, and it sticks right down onto that and the base of my machine. And it has the opening here for your feed dogs. You can use it and leave it on your area all the time because you've got markings here for 1/4 inch, 3/8, 5/8, and you've got angles. So it's a really handy thing to have. If it gets so that it doesn't stick on the back, you're going to want to save the plastic that comes with it, because this is sticky and it will pick up any lint that you have. For example, when I'm working with that batting and cutting it, I'm getting a lot of lint. So I just took a baby wipe and wiped the back, and it removed all of that lint and it made it stick again, okay? But that is a wonderful, and it's very slick. It's a great product, and I think you're going to use it a lot, okay? When I was using the Marsha Beraldi meander ruler. Lana showed you how you're going to use this. You stitch along, and when you end up over here at the stop, you just turn it around and you keep stitching. Okay? One thing that I found, because I practiced with it a little bit, is I liked the effect of a ribbon. It's a ribbon stitch. So when you are using the ruler, you place it down and stitch, and then you move it 1/4 of an inch to the side. Just slide it 1/4 of an inch to the side, and then you stitch again, and you get this ribbon effect so that it will fill in a little bit more and give you a little bit different look. You could do that several times if you wanted to and get a more filled quilting area. Okay? And the final thing I'm going to tell you about is this Embellish chenille cutter. I had not used this the way that Lana did, and I had to ask her about it. So it works really, really nicely to remove my cutaway stabilizer from the back of my embroidery. So for example, this is my denim jacket, and when I was cutting away the stabilizer, I used the small end here and went through and cut it away without having to worry about cutting my fabric. And I have been careful with this. However, there are times where I've been using a scissors and I have accidentally cut. So that's what this is for. It's to cut away stabilizer from behind your embroidery. And I thank Lana for letting me know that. She comes up with these wonderful ideas. Okay. All right. That's it for me. Don't forget to post your photos in the comments section so that you get a chance to win that drawing. Okay. Those things are just crazy. And I really miss going around and seeing everybody. It's the highlight of my time with So Fun is to see those show and tells, so make sure you do that. Go to qualitysewing.com and you can find all of these items that Lana and I both told you about, and that you can order them. They will ship them to you. Remember, that doesn't normally happen. We're usually short on things, and this time everything's available. So thank you so much for watching me, and I wish I could see your smiling faces, and stay healthy.